Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, so it has been a while since I've been around. I haven't really been streaming at all. I haven't been playing any video games really. And I mean, basically, whatever I've uploaded to YouTube, they've just been, preset scheduled videos that I uploaded earlier on, about a month ago, and I just decided to release one short clip every day. Um, yeah, so for me at least, it's been quite a while since I've basically been online and been active on the internet. To refresh anyone's memory who doesn't really know and isn't really aware, for the past, I want to say, 3 weeks roughly, I've been on a family trip to visit my extended family who live abroad. So I am here in the US and my family is back in my home country. I won't really go into specifics of where, but it's somewhere in Asia. Um, and so I took a family trip with my mother and my sibling, and we went to go and visit our extended family, and we had a great time. It was fantastic. Um, I will say there were definitely some issues that popped up. Some of them were things that could definitely have been done better and was definitely an oversight on my part or on my family's part, but there were other issues that were not really in our control, and they did put a little bit of a damper on the overall trip experience. But I wanted to kind of take the time today to discuss all of that and to sort of run down how exactly the trip went. Um, so first of all, right, the trip going back to my home country, we flew from here, the US, to Istanbul. We flew to Turkey, and we had a layover in Turkey. Now, the thing is that in like when we were looking for flight tickets and for planning out our trip and everything, the best options that we had two options. The first one was, obviously to have a layover in Turkey in Istanbul, um, and that layover would happen for 2 days, right? And then after 2 days, we would fly from Istanbul to my home country. The other option that we had was to fly to, I believe, some country in Europe. I don't remember which one exactly, but it was a European country, and we would have a layover there. I think the layover was about the same. It was like maybe a day or maybe 2 days. And then we would obviously fly from there to my home country. Um, the reason why we didn't go with that second option of stopping in the European country is because myself and my mother, we are not US citizens. We have a permanent residentship. And so if you are not a US citizen, you are required to get a temporary visa to stay in the European country for X amount of time, right? And obviously, the visas, you have to apply for them, you also have to pay for them, and they're not exactly cheap. Um, and so we decided that, flying through Turkey, through Istanbul, and then going to our home country would be the better option. In hindsight, looking back, I don't think that it was the right choice. I don't think it was a good idea overall. Um, so what ended up happening, right, is we flew from the US to Turkey and we landed. And we spent 2 days there. It was a pretty good 2 days, nothing too bad. Um, we kind of just took in the sights around us and we ate some of the local food. It was very delicious, very wonderful. I have to say that, you know, the people of Turkey, the people of Istanbul, are very, very kind, very welcoming people. I had no issues with the local residents where we were staying at, right, where our hotel was. Um, we did have two problems, though, two major problems. So the first one was that uh, the hotel that we were staying at, it was not really the greatest hotel. I think it was advertised as like a 3 or 4 star hotel, but I don't know. It didn't really feel that grand. It didn't really feel that amazing. And one thing that really kind of bugged us is that at the end of our stay, right, at the end of the 2 days that we were going to be staying in Istanbul, we were told that the checkout time for our hotel was 3 p.m., Turkey, Istanbul time. Um, and so we were, perfectly fine with that. We were preparing, getting ready to, pack up all our bags and get all our belongings and leave the hotel. At around, I want to say maybe 2 p.m. or 2:30, we were notified by one of the staff members of the hotel. He was this like elderly Turkish guy, right? Um, Not really someone who was very, I would say, friendly and very sociable. He's not a type of person that you could easily, approach on the street or in public, right? So he was a very, I would say, old-fashioned Turkish man. He came over to where, our hotel room was, and he basically kind of uh, notified us that checkout time was upon us and that we needed to leave. And we told him, we were like, we were, given instructions by another hotel staff member, right? Another Turkish man who was working behind the counter when we, first came to the hotel. We were told that checkout time was 3 p.m. And this other gentleman, he looked very confused and was not sure, why we were given that information or how we were given that information. And to be honest, I have no idea who was right or who was wrong. I don't know whether 2 p.m. was the proper time or 3 p.m. or whatever. But I think the problem was just that this, Turkish gentleman who was running the hotel, he he had a very like rude demeanor and he was very like blunt and very, harsh with the way that he talked and he wasn't really kind or understanding at all. And yeah, basically he just told us, all right, checkout time is now. Get out of your hotel room. Get out. Um, I think that was the one of the big problems. And then um, another problem that we came across, right, was later on. So the time that we left the hotel was roughly around 2 p.m., 3 p.m. on that day. And then on that same day, um, or actually, so yeah, on that day, we would go back to the airport, right? And we would, get prepared for our flight. And our flight was actually in the very early morning. So it was at I believe 1:20 a.m. the next day. So that was about what maybe like 9 or 10 hours from the time that we checked out from the hotel. And so, what we decided to do is that, we had all of our luggage and all of our bags and everything with us, and we didn't really want to kind of walk around Istanbul, walk around Turkey with all of our luggage in tow because we would get very tired very easily, and it would be a pain in the butt. It would be a terrible experience of exploring the country. So we decided that it would be best if we just took transportation back to the airport and we waited at the airport. Um, so what ended up happening is, we eventually would arrive at the airport, and we kind of waited around for several hours waiting for our flight. And what ended up happening is we, we had some leftover food that we needed to finish, and we couldn't take it with us on the flight. We didn't really have any space, and we didn't really want to think about what was allowed and what was not allowed to be taken on the trip, on the plane trip, back to my home country. And so we decided to stop at a food court to sit down and finish the food, and we did. And eventually we made our way to the gate that we would be that our flight would be departing from. And so I want to say that we arrived at our gate. So our flight was at 1:20 a.m. in the morning. We arrived there, I want to say about maybe at the very latest 12:40 or 12:45 a.m. So a good half hour, more or less. We arrived at the gate before our flight. Now, here's the thing that we didn't realize, and this is kind of, yeah, I mean, this is, kind of a mistake on my family's part. I do recognize that and I realize that. So my mother, she originally thought that our flight was at 1:50 a.m. And so we were kind of chillaxing. We weren't really worried about anything. We were just going about our time at the airport. Um, and then, all of a sudden, right? So time is ticking by, and we see that there's a gate, like a neighboring airport gate, that is boarding for another flight. And I think that that flight is going to Hong Kong, if I'm not mistaken. And so a bunch of people, they get up, they're waiting in line, they board the plane. And I look at my clock and I'm like, huh, it's currently 1:20 a.m. and there has been like zero notifications, zero announcements, like just nothing, no information about our flight back to my home country. And the interesting thing is, right, when me and my family first arrived at the gate, myself and my mother, we both distinctly remember that there were several people in the like seating gate area that were traveling to like that were on the same flight that we were, right? That were traveling back to my home country, and they would be passengers on the same plane as us. Um, we could tell because, they spoke the um, the native home language, right? And I believe my mother also said that she heard some of them specifically mention our home country and talk about like, yeah, we're going to this country, blah blah blah, right? Um, so I think it's very fair to say that there were people at the gate area who were meant to be on the same flight as us. But then all of a sudden, when it came to like 1:20 a.m., right? The only people that were in the gate area were people flying to Hong Kong, which was very bizarre, very weird. Um, and long story short, we ended up missing our flight. Um, and so we basically run over to the help desk, right? So my the entire flight that we took from the US to Istanbul and then Istanbul to my home country, The entire flight was booked through Turkish Airlines. And I don't know if this is a great idea or not, but I kind of want to call them out. I kind of want to specifically point a finger at them because I do feel like some of the responsibility here, some of the fault here, it goes to them. I do think that they need to be held responsible for some of the actions that happened, right? So, uh, we went over to the Turkish Airlines help desk, right? Which was quite far away. It was yeah, definitely quite a walk away. So basically, how do I explain this? So let's say that you have like the main body of the airport building, right? So let's just say, you have the main body and you have the different boarding gates, right? So you have like gate A, gate B, gate C, gate D, so on and so forth. So our flight was originally going to be departing from a gate that was one of the B gates. It was like gate B18 or something like that of the airport. And so you have the main body of the airport terminal, right? The airport building. And what would happen is you like go down these escalators, and then if you turn left, you would go to all of the A gates. So like A1 through A20 or something like that. And then if you turn right, you would go to gate B. So it would be gate B1 through gate B20 or something like that. And then if you wanted to go to gate C, D, E, F, all those others, you would basically have to go to the opposite side of the airport building. And for those who are unaware, um, Istanbul Airport in Turkey is considered, I believe, the world's largest airport terminal. Like it is massively huge. So in order to like walk from one end to the other, it takes forever. So, um, we were located basically at one of the far end, spaces of the airport building where gate B1 through B20 or whatever was located. And what we had to do was we had to walk all the way back to like that middle part where there's an escalator and it divides into gate A and gate B. So we had to walk back to that middle part where the Turkish Airlines help desk was. And I would say it would take a normal person a good maybe 15 to 20-minute walk just to get there, right? And I think that's even if you are kind of speed walking. Like if you're a fast walker. If you're a slow walker, it could take maybe 25 minutes, half an hour to walk from that end all the way back to the middle. So basically, we hurry back to the help desk and we speak to the people there. Um, so we explain to them what happened, right? We explain to them, hey, we think we missed our flight. What the hell is going on, right? And I have to say, the gentleman that we were speaking with, I think it's maybe even a little bit too generous to call him a gentleman. The man that we spoke with at the help desk, who I'm pretty sure all these guys are Turkish, like they have a Turkish accent and they're probably from Istanbul, right? Um, so the guy that we were speaking with, he was kind of similar in so he was kind of similar to the hotel manager guy in the sense that he was very abrupt, very rude, very like, you know, he just didn't seem to care at all, and he didn't have any sort of kindness in him, whatsoever. He was just very robotic and very, I don't know, kind of dickish, if I had to say so myself. Um, so this man, right? He the first question that he asks us is, "Why did you miss your flight?" And we told him, we were like, we arrived at the gate at least half an hour before our flight was supposed to depart at 1:20 a.m., right? And there was nothing. There was no announcement, no information or anything about our flight at all for the next, half hour or however long that we waited there. And, so for those of you who don't really travel a lot, don't really fly a lot, there's something that maybe you might not be super familiar with, right? So, at every single airport in the world, I'm like 99% sure this is how it works. You have boarding gates, right? Where different flights depart from. And so you have individual boarding gates, and then you have the entire airport, right? Now, both the individual boarding gates as well as the entire airport, they have two different individual, separate intercom systems. And basically, what that is it's a speaker system that relays messages. So, for example, if there's a staff member who's at a boarding gate and they want to announce something to the crowd of passengers and the people who are waiting, they pick up the microphone and they use the public speaker system, right? And so there are speaker systems at each specific individual boarding gate, and then there is an overall kind of speaker system that basically broadcasts to the entire airport. Now, the thing is, when we arrived at the boarding gate, right, there was like just dead silence, radio silence, nothing. No one said anything, no information was presented, nothing at all. There were no announcements at the boarding gate, speaker system broadcast, right? And there was no announcement from the overall airport, right? And we told that to the Turkish Airlines staff that we were talking to. We said, hey, there was no announcement, no nothing about our flight. So we didn't know what was happening. We didn't know if it was boarding or if it had changed gates or anything like that. We were just completely unaware, right? And we sat at that boarding gate for half an hour at the very least. And here's like the most bullshit part of the entire conversation, and I apologize for those who aren't really fond of swearing. I just did swear there a little bit, but this genuinely did piss me off, and it made me really angry. Is there was a gentleman, right, who was kind of it was another Turkish Airlines staff member who was kind of standing behind the guy that we were speaking to. So this guy who was standing, he suddenly chimes in. He interrupts the conversation and he says, "There are a bunch of flights in this airport, right? There's like 1,500 flights or something like that each day or something. I don't even know what he said, but he said there are a bunch of flights. That's why there were no announcements." Now, here's the thing that, you know, really, really angers me about why he said that and the fact that he said that, right? Is that okay, there are a bunch of flights in the world's largest airport in the world. Like that, sure, that's logical. That makes sense. However, each individual boarding gate has its own separate individual speaker system that can be used to broadcast a message to the specific passengers and the people who are only at the boarding gate, not in the entire airport. So they could have made an announcement to that boarding gate and only that boarding gate, but they didn't. There was nothing, right? And here's why that's a problem, because okay, you could, you know, you could counter argue with me and you could come back with the statement of like, oh, but hey, you and your family, you guys arrived too late to the gate, right? Like by the time you arrived, the plane had maybe already boarded or something, right? Like you could come up with that argument. And to that, I would reply, okay, now here's the thing. Let's pretend that you are working as a staff member of an airline, right? And you are responsible for getting passengers from the boarding gate to the plane, right? Let's say that's your job. Think about this, hypothetically. If there is a family of 3 people who are missing from a flight, not just one person, but 3 people as a family who are missing from a flight, are you not going to, I don't know, announce anything to the boarding gate, broadcasting system or to the airport? Or are you not gonna, you know, try to enlist the help of other staff members to find these 3 missing people from a flight? Like that should be a number one priority concern. You can't just have 3 people go missing out of nowhere and not do anything about it. That to me is what I would label, what I would call negligence. And just like people not doing their damn job. Like you failed the one thing that you are hired to do, that you are paid to do. And I feel like that is absolutely ridiculous, right? So, we have this frustrating conversation with these, help staff at the Turkish Airlines help desk. And what ends up happening is they tell us, okay, we can schedule you for the next flight back to your home country. The next flight happens the next day. So it's about, I want to say, like, I don't know, it was maybe like anywhere from 15 to 20 hours after our first flight was supposed to be. And they were like, here's the worst part of it, and this is why I am kind of here ranting about this now, and why I'm very very pissed off, is they said, well, you know, because this was your fault, because you were the ones that missed your flight, we're going to charge you for extra tickets back to your home country. And they said each ticket is going to be roughly about 800 US dollars per person. So you multiply that by 3 and you'll get your, rough estimated amount. Um, so we had to pay basically, I would say another 2 or maybe 2.5 grand US dollars, right? 2000 to 2500 US dollars we paid extra just to get our flight from Istanbul back to our home country. And I think that like it's just, I don't know, that to me it was so unfair and so unjust. I felt like, you know, I felt like we were innocent people getting locked up in a prison for doing nothing because, it was just ridiculous. There were circumstances that my family could not control, and it was not our fault. In fact, it was the fault of Turkish Airlines. It was the fault of, the airport and the airport staff who were not doing their job properly and caused us to, miss our flight, right? Um, yeah, it was just absolutely ridiculous and made no sense. I feel like, you know, maybe at the most, my family was responsible for like 10 to 20% of the reason why we ended up missing our flight. And then the, you know, remaining 80 to 90% of the fault belongs to Turkish Airlines, to the airport staff and whatever. And it was just so disgusting to have, you know, these people who are considered to be, you know, customer service people treat us like garbage and treat us like shit. And it was absolutely ridiculous. And so, I spoke with my family, and the conclusion that we came to was that, you know, we basically just need to get from Istanbul to our home country, and that's like the number one priority. And then after we do that, we'll figure out the next steps. And so I believe as of right now, our only course of action that we can take is, so we ended up booking our flight tickets. We booked it through a bank. We used Chase Bank to book our tickets rather than booking it, directly through the airlines or whatever. And so our current best option, the idea that we have is we're probably gonna have to reach out to, Chase customer service and be like, hey guys, can you help us with this problem? We were, unfairly charged an extra 2,000 to 2,500 US dollars for, an absolute garbage bullshit reason that is like doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Um, so that's what we'll probably end up doing, and it definitely made the entire trip a lot worse than it had to be, and that it should have been. Um, However, we did eventually arrive at, our home country. We were able to connect with our extended family, and you know, from that point onward, when we arrived back in our home country, up until the point where we left and we came back home, it was an amazing time, a wonderful time. I got to, see my grandma. I got to see a lot of my cousins, my uncles, my aunts, my, you know, grandpas, all that stuff. I got to see a lot of my relatives that I miss dearly, and it was definitely a wonderful time. I don't think I, really regret any of the time that I spent there, because being away from home, it was kind of frustrating. I didn't really have a PC. I didn't really have access to video games or anything like that. But after a while, I realized that it was a lot better for my health to kind of disconnect from all that and to take a break and to chill out. So essentially, the only thing that I really had for entertainment over there was I had some mobile games on my phone, but that's basically it. Um, so yeah. Overall, the trip was wonderful, spending time with my extended family. I had a wonderful, amazing time. I actually did end up bringing, so I brought this little guy. He came with me on the trip just because, I felt like it would be a good opportunity to bring a little bit of a guardian, a protector, to help guide my travels. So I brought him because I felt like this chonky guy right here, he would be a little bit too chonky to fit in any luggage, right, that we wanted to take. Um, what else can I talk about? So there were two other issues that popped up while we were, staying in my home country. These issues were not really that much of a big deal, just because, they were easily dealt with and they didn't really cause like a huge problem for me. The first one was that, um, so when my family was packing for the trip, um, my family, they didn't really, I don't know, they didn't really take too much care with, uh, you know, with making sure everything was properly packed and put in the bags and everything. Um, and so what ended up happening is, my brother, he packed his stuff, my mother, she packed her stuff, and, you know, what happened was um, I had, a pile of stuff that I wanted to pack, some clothing, right? And I put it near the suitcase or the luggage that I was going to be putting it in. But what happened was like my mother, she wanted to kind of separate clothing into different bags and use some clothing uh, kind of as like a filler to make sure that some of the items we were bringing would not break in the luggage. So she would use clothing to kind of protect it, and cover it and whatever. And so um, what ended up happening is she took like a pile of my clothing and she set it aside. And she was like, you can put this in your own separate suitcase or whatever at a later time. Unfortunately, what ended up happening is my brother, he didn't realize that it was clothing that I was going to be packing, and he thought that it was actually just like laundry, right? And so he took that clothing and whatever, and he gave it to me, and I put it in my room, and I completely forgot to pack it. So, long story short is I arrived back in my home country and I had a lot less clothing than I initially planned to bring and I didn't really have enough. So I had to, I had to wear clothing pretty sparingly and then we had to wash a lot of our clothing very often, which wasn't really a huge deal because of the fact that, the washer that my family has back in my home country. It's not a huge washer, so it can't like fit a bunch of clothing anyways. But yeah, so that was a minor inconvenience. And then another one was I want to say during the last week that I stayed in my home country, I ended up getting sick. I caught a cold, I believe, and so I had like a runny nose. And at other times my nose was like stuffy, right? Like I had blockage in my nose, and then occasionally I would be coughing, um, and just typical uh, common symptoms of a minor cold, stuff like that. I think I had a fever maybe 1 or 2 days, but that was it. So the last week it was a little bit rough, but I didn't really I didn't really feel like I was bedridden or anything like that. I didn't really feel like I was low energy or anything. It's just I had a minor sickness to deal with and therefore I had to be very careful with you know, traveling outside and stuff like that because the weather in my home country, it's basically the same here as here in the US. It was very, very cold, very winter weather. And there were many days where it snowed. And so it was not exactly my ideal climate, so to speak. So, yeah. But overall, pretty good. Um, the last thing that I can think of is, we came and we returned back home. I want to say so we returned back home. I think two or 3 days ago, and after the first day that we came back, that night that we returned, for some reason I don't know what it was. I developed some sort of random sickness. I had stomach aches and I had a fever and it was very annoying. I don't know if I'm not sure what exactly the cause of it was, but I was worried that it was a stomach infection and that I had, caught something by eating maybe the wrong food or something like that. And so I kind of had to look up, different remedies, different treatments for the symptoms that I was experiencing. And for a little bit, I felt kind of terrible. So I did, kind of lay in my bed and sleep quite a bit. But currently, right now, as I'm recording this video, I don't really feel sick anymore. I feel fine, back to normal. But I'll see what the next couple of days holds. But yeah, I'm very excited to, get back to, playing Genshin, streaming Genshin, uploading occasional clips and videos, stuff like that. Um, I will say, so I ended up getting, I don't know if I talked about this before. I think I have, but I ended up getting basically two games that are brand new in my Steam library. So I got the Spider-Man game, the PlayStation 4 Spider-Man game that was, released on Steam. So I got that one. I got it a while ago. It was even before my trip happened. So I bought that game and I have it in my Steam library. I can play that one. And then most recently, the game that I got was I bought Gotham Knights because it was basically on sale for half price during the time whenever I was abroad visiting my relatives. So I bought that game, and I think it should work. Like, I don't think it should have any problems, but I am a little bit worried that maybe I bought the wrong version because apparently there are like each country, I guess, has their own version of games, and certain versions will not work in other countries. So the fact that I bought the Gotham Knights game while I was abroad, I am worried that it may not work properly when I try and launch it on my PC, but we'll see. We'll see how that turns out. So I do have a couple of games that I could stream and play and check out and have a good time enjoying. But I am also very much looking forward to getting back to Genshin Impact as well. So, we have version 3.3 coming up. I arrived just before version 3.3 is going to be releasing, so that's going to be exciting. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what new content there is to explore. But for now, I think that's going to be all for me today. And I hope that everyone has been having a wonderful, November and now, having a good start to the month of December. I wish you guys all the happiness and, fun that you can have. And yeah, if you guys want to, you can, stay tuned and stick around for any YouTube uploads, or you can come check me out on Twitch and watch my streams. But that'll be all for now. Alright, guys, this has been Capybara or Copium Impact, and I'll see you guys later.